And staying on trend with Christmas, we're going to be speaking about Entrepreneurship 101, style, beauty, and in the Christmas season. And we are looking forward to this conversation. With me this morning is DeAndre Wilson, who's a social media influencer, a digital content creator as well. Good morning, DeAndre.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Now Morning program. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, DeAndre, tell us a little bit about your background. You're a content creator, you're a social media influencer. What made you start this?
So, it was years ago. I was influenced myself by other content creators, but naturally it wasn't something very popular here. So just looking at, people do it internationally, I just felt like I want to do the same thing. It's a form of self-expression, much like any other art form. So I just decided to give it a shot. And now, years later, it has paid off to become something lucrative and somewhat
Wonderful.
successful. So yeah.
And you have a YouTube channel going, and that's been quite successful. And tell us a little bit about it. What type of content do you have on there?
So I mostly do a lot of beauty, natural hair type of content. And then recently I started doing more lifestyle. So I would vlog about my life day to day, that kind of thing, talk about just interests, life experiences, just share a part of myself with my audience, basically.
That's so great. And, part of your thing is, as you said, natural hair there. You are, inadvertently also promoting Black beauty. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's super important, the climate that we're in, the world that we live in right now. I think it's so necessary to promote people that may not always get that type of coverage elsewhere. I think that is so important.
And you do content creation full time now. It's gotten to that point where you don't need to do anything else but create your content, put it out there on the platforms. And how do you get to that point as a young person? How were you able to cultivate such a following that you could do this full time?
So it's not easy and it's not overnight at all. It takes, honestly, for most people, years to cultivate that type of audience and to get to that point where you could do it primarily. For me, it was no different. It took a long time, and it took a matter of just seriousness, like taking myself seriously, taking my craft seriously, looking at people that inspired me, that were doing the same thing, that were doing it to a standard and to a level that I thought was very professional, and that I aspired to. And I think just from looking at that, it pushed me to want to be my best self. And that is how you grow and get to a place where brands take you seriously and they reach out, and you could start working with different brands, whether internationally or locally, on that level. So yeah.
Do you think being from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean made it more difficult to really get that type of following that you have now?
Absolutely. As I said before, it's not super common. It's not the average career here at all, and people still see it kind of as a hobby, as like a side gig. So it's difficult. It could also be difficult to get that support sometimes, where you feel like people, they don't really want to support you until they see you doing it at a certain level. So it's hard to get that like ground level support.
Right.
But it's important to kind of stay focused, have that tunnel vision, knowing like what you want personally for yourself, and you'll get there.
And what drives you, DeAndre?
What drives me?
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm quite self-motivated, but I've just always had this, I think, inward desire to be my best self. I kind of always stress that, because I try not to compare or try to be better than anybody else, but who I was, the day prior, etc. So I think that's like a big motivation for me, like looking at myself and saying like, okay, I know I have the potential to get to this place. So what do I need to do every single day to get closer to that goal, or closer to that destination, basically. As well as just knowing, being from the Caribbean, it's much harder, and I think I have something to prove to myself that it is possible to go really, really far, even if you may not be from a place that always pushes the idea of content creation or just on traditional careers in general.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you're such an inspiration. I'm sure there are some young people and some not so young people who may have been thinking about it for a while and stuff like that. And you're probably inspiring somebody right now as we speak. Now, some of the
Hopefully.
content that you created that we spoke about just briefly earlier, you know, it's beauty and self-care and stuff like that. And for the, you know, here now, of course, you know, it's the holiday season. You know, so what are some of the tips and, you know, the gift guides that you can give to people when it comes to the festive season here in Trinidad and
So
Tobago, of
I
course?
just put out a gift guide video on my channel, and I featured quite a few brands, about 16 different brands. And I just spoke at length about just the different brands that exist here locally. So one thing I would say for sure is there are tons, you know, people sometimes overlook the quality that we have right here in Trinidad and
Right.
Tobago, you know, locally. So I would say look around, you go to up markets, go to all of the markets right now. You could definitely find some amazing gifts that are made by local artisans. So I definitely say look around. Obviously, you can check out my gift guide video. You'd find quite a few great brands of all varieties listed in the video. From beauty, you have male self-care, you have female self-care, you have home fragrances, a ton of things.
That's wonderful. And before we go, is there any tips or word of advice you'd want to give to anybody watching right now, other local content creators who, you know, they're trying to get to the level you're at and stuff? Is there any advice you would give them?
Yeah, I would say that as difficult as it may be sometimes, and as much as it may feel like the progression is slow or you don't really have a starting point or whatever you may feel that challenges you, I would say to use it as motivation. And it's not always easy to do, but for me, I think of the fact that I know I'm not exactly where I want to be, and though I may not always get the support that I want, or I may not be at a place that I want to be at, I know that I have so much room to grow. And so I would just say, like, keep pushing, stay focused, know in your mind what you want to achieve, and just keep working towards that. It may sound so cliche, but I know that it's really the only way to get there. If you give up, you'll never actually make it to the goal.
Right, right. Actually, I have one more question for you, DeAndre. When it comes to, you know, just finding your niche and, you know, knowing what content would actually get people's attention, how did you figure that out?
So this is a good question. At first, it wasn't particularly clear. You
Right.
know, I started off with just a general passion. I just knew I wanted to do something, and I moved in that direction. So I would say that's the first thing. Sometimes you don't always know this is what I want to do or this is my strength or niche, but you have this like general pull towards a category or an area. Follow it, go there, get involved, do different things that fall into that category. Over time you find things that people naturally draw toward you for
Right.
and ask you about, and you know they find interesting. In particular, pay attention to the things that people always want to know about you or ask you about or ask you for tips on, that kind of thing. That usually indicates an area of strength,
Right.
and I would say perfect that, work on that, grow in that area. And that's, you know, exactly what happened for me. So yeah.
Well, that's such great advice there. And with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on all your success. And I do expect to see a lot more coming from you because you're such a hardworking and inspirational person. I want to thank you so much, DeAndre.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great one.